What's up, guys? Welcome back to Game Junction. We are talking a little about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond.
Beyond.
Beyond what?
I have no idea. You said that I had something I wanted to say, and then I lost it. Sorry about that.
What, Buzz Lightyear?
Yes,
To
yeah.
infinity and beyond.
I had Buzz Lightyear. I was like, I'm gonna say that, and then I immediately went blank.
Yeah, I thought about that earlier. I mean, Buzz Lightyear's kind of like Samus a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. So, we watched the Nintendo Direct, talked a little bit about it on the podcast. And you're a big Metroid fan. I like Metroid too. I would say that you're probably the bigger fan, though. It's your favorite series, probably.
Yeah, because it's one of the earlier series I remember playing. Because I grew up with both Metroid Fusion and Metroid Prime. Like I played those really young, so like my early entry into Nintendo, Metroid was involved. So it's
Yeah,
as far as my early childhood, it was definitely a part of it.
Bomberman's there too, right? I always
Yeah,
equate Samus and Bomberman to you. Always, I don't know why. I just always have.
two games I played the crap ton growing out of.
Yeah, I love it. Oh man, so we're definitely excited for this. This is so many years in the making. That the trailer was pretty cool, but it was kind of like you had to try to pick it apart a little bit. There wasn't a ton there,
I'd say it's
but
pretty short, but it was more just like it just went straight into gameplay. Kind of dabbled at the end with the story, but it was just like here's great initial gameplay, really obvious. This is gonna be like initial entry into the game, like the first tutorial area is what I would guess from what it looked like, and then obviously, Silence shows up at the very end. That he was there at the very end of Prime 3,
yeah.
so it's good that they're being consistent with that. But as far as like where we're gonna go, where this falls in the timeline, and the actual story is kind of like left up to interpretation. They didn't really
Well,
give us a whole lot of anything other than it's kind of obvious that Silent's working with Metroids and the Space Pirates, so he's gonna be our
yeah,
antagonist.
yeah.
Past that, or sorry, it's not Silent. I believe it's Sylux, if I'm not mispronouncing
Si-
that right.
yeah.
Sylux. Yeah, I was saying it wrong, but as far as like where the story's actually gonna go, no idea, but I'm excited to learn where this game's going to go for
What
sure.
if he isn't like the main antagonist though? What if he isn't? What if it is just a trailer thing and something happens and maybe they befriend each other?
I don't know if I
Yeah,
could imagine that actually happening, to be fair, but
yeah, I
if
get
he
it.
wasn't the main villain or the main antagonist, I'd be curious where the story goes with that, and I feel like that's something we're not. You'd find out as you play the game, like why tease it in the trailer. The
Yeah,
whole misdirection would be better.
yeah. I'm like looking through the hunter's manual. I was curious. I wanted to check a few of the hunters. I forget their names, but I think this plays a massive role in the game. Massive role. It's very heavy on story.
Well,
Very heavy on story. What?
I'm listening to what you have to say.
Now I know we all know I hype this game up. Metroid Prime Hunters is one of my favorite games of all time.
I think it's
Absolutely,
really. No, I was going to say I thought it was really good for the multiplayer.
the multiplayer was amazing for the time. That's what mostly hooked me to it. I did play
Yeah.
through the single player probably 10 times at least, but the multiplayer I think, and this is just guessing because I cannot remember the exact hours, and unfortunately I do not have that cart or DS anymore, but I had well over 1,500 hours in the multiplayer. I played it every day after school for a while. I bought the special DS headset mic. I
Oh
bought
yeah.
the Nintendo Wi-Fi USB connector just for this game and Mario Kart. And anything that was online, there was a period of time if it had the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, I was going after it because it was like new on a handheld, like playing online. It felt like the future. You know what I
Oh
mean?
no, it did.
On a
At,
handheld, like it was insane.
at the time, it was the future.
It really was, yeah. I'm just so curious, like what's going to happen here. I've seen some other people's reactions, and there's been like kind of the debate on whether it's going to be on the Switch 1 or Switch 2 or potentially both.
I hear a lot and obviously nobody outside of Nintendo really knows, but you get the feeling based off of we're expecting the Switch sequel to come out sometime in 2025. I think the rumors or what people are talking about is the announcement we're expecting sometime in the fall, that direct to be the one to announce it. And
Yeah.
with the just so happens the development cycle says, hey, this is coming out 2025. I would be shocked if it wasn't a cross-platform release as it stands right now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't. It might not be the system seller we're expecting it to be. Obviously, it's been a while since we've had like a 3D Mario game, so at least my thinking is probably going to be a Mario game is the system seller. But I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't just get attached as another launch title for the whatever the Switch successor ends up actually being.
Yeah, because I mean, it's been a while since we've had a 3D Mario, and that makes sense. It, there's typically a Mario that launches with something like it. Even the DS, for example, it launched with Super Mario 64 DS. That was a big
Yeah,
deal because you had like all those characters in that game now. And like what else? Switch launched with Odyssey. The 64 launched with Super Mario 64, right? And
yeah. Well, I mean,
Ocarina of Time.
the Switch, I believe it didn't launch. Odyssey came out like 6 months after the
No, no,
Switch
no.
came out.
The 64.
Oh,
Super
the
Mario.
64.
Yeah, Super
No,
Mario 64 and
well,
Ocarina.
you said Odyssey, so you had me confused there
Oh,
for a
I'm
second.
sorry. Yeah, Super Mario 64 is what I meant.
Yeah,
I think it launched with the console. I want to say it
I
did.
believe it did.
Yeah,
I feel very confident saying that it did.
yeah. So I mean, it would be interesting to see what happens with a Metroid cross-platform. We know it can, um, by looking at by what we saw. And I was watching it in 4K. Um, to me and a lot of other people, it looked very, very similar to Metroid Prime Remastered. Um,
Graphically, yeah, it did.
it really did, which could be a disappointment to some people that the new game looks like a remaster of the first game. I mean, it seems kind of weird that it doesn't look significantly better. But
Well,
Switch 2, if that's the case, we don't know that hardware yet.
yeah, but I mean, you say that, and the Prime Remaster looks amazing.
It
They
does.
obviously
It
went
does.
in and from the ground up made that game look amazing. So I would expect it to look fairly similar to a game they just remastered,
No, I'm with
as
you.
well as the
That's one of my grabs. I think it's amazing. It's almost it's almost like a remake. It's really not. It's a remaster, but like graphically, like they made that game look way better. Metroid Prime Remastered looks amazing. I if it's a cross-platform game, I always get worried about cross-platform games. The reason being is that they're typically developed for the previous system and then upscaled to the next system. But
I could
for
believe
this,
that.
I feel like would Nintendo do that? I mean, they did it with Twilight Princess. They did it with
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild.
I guess I could see because it was always meant to come out on the Switch, but it just so happens because of the delays and everything else, it's running into the next console's the end of the life and the next console's beginning. And I just don't see why you would leave it on the Switch and not take advantage of not only cross-platform potentially, but the newer, the better hardware.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I would be surprised if they only put it on the newer one, just because you don't really look at Metroid as a system seller itself.
right, right.
But I mean, who knows what Nintendo's obviously thinking? But I think the standard thought is this is going to probably be a cross-gen platform. It's just its release window lines up is starting to
Yeah.
line up pretty perfectly for the Switch successor.
And then the other thing is too, like we always get games from Nintendo for a previous console when the new one's out. Like that always happens, and it's typically
Yeah,
like a Kirby game, and like they did the Luigi's Mansion remake for the 3DS, and that was at the Switch had already been out for a while. Um, so I could definitely see them. They've done plenty of cross platforms enough that it sort of makes sense. Not with Metroid though, so it's a little different. Um, yeah, I'm just thinking about it. I really do hope that it makes those sales because Dread did well for Metroid.
yeah,
It's the top selling, correct? When we look,
I believe so. Yeah,
yeah, that's insane. And if it's on Switch, it sells. That's kind of like the consensus. Um, so my hope is that the Switch 2 is the same way. If something goes there, it sells and it builds up that series because I think Metroid is one of Nintendo's best properties. Um, there's a lot that can be done there, a lot that's not being done enough. If we're being real, you know what I mean, compared to
Need to
other
get
series.
it needs to be promoted and advertised more because Dread is the best-selling game, and it's only got 3.01 million sales. It's the
And,
only game to break 3 million sales.
and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has how much?
I can double check.
It sells every day, literally. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious if Sylux is the antagonist. But I would not be surprised if he's not. I don't know why, but there's something about that title and the way that they were looking at each other. I was like pausing the video, like looking frame by
But
frame.
he's coming in with both two
With
Metroids
Metroids
and the Space Pirates on his side, and Space Pirates have always been an enemy of Samus, like an enemy of the Federation,
they
essentially.
have, and it could just be that, but it seems weird they would show that in the trailer because that'd be awfully hard for Samus to get out of. That was how many people? Two Metroids,
Well, I mean, it could
Sylux, and
be
two.
if assuming that's like the end of the tutorial area. I think it would make sense because in a lot of games, Samus enters a tutorial area with a lot of the basic armor, charge beam, missile, and stuff like that. And then something happens where you have to try to escape and or lose your power ups at the same time. So it
Yeah,
could be she barely escapes from Sylux, but in the process, loses all her upgrades. Obviously the standard you have to go back and get all those upgrades as well. So I can
yeah.
see something like that probably end up happening.
And then we talked on the podcast about the potential placement in the series where we think it might be going. So I think we kind of agree that it could be going after 3, correct? But before
at
Other
at
M
the latest.
at the latest.
Yeah, because the only hint that we have is the year they say 20X9, I believe, which would fall right around both Metroid 2 and Metroid 3.
Yeah,
So I mean, ultimately, we're not really going to know until we get into the game and or until Nintendo tells us for sure either whatever actually happens. But
right.
I think it'd be interesting because from what we understand, canonically, all the other Prime games fall between Metroid 1 and Metroid 2.
Yeah,
Uh,
I always found it weird too because Prime is such a different type of game that, and it's crazy that it's so early in the timeline. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I think it
Uh,
just fits so well because when Prime 1 came out, it came out right the same time Fusion did. So
yes, yep,
it came out right around the time Prime 4 did. So
yep,
a lot of the first three games and a lot of the lore had kind of already been established, whether it's in the games or some of the expanded manga that helped expand some of the story. Obviously, some of it this series has been out for like 40 years, so there's a long time to build up the lore of the main 5 games at this point. But
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
you get to start off as a side story, so it wasn't kind of related, and then later down the line, they're kind of like, we're gonna fit it here in the timeline, whether that's proactively or retroactively. Only Nintendo really knows.
That makes sense. I guess we will follow everything going on with this and play it when it comes out.
Definitely.
All right, we appreciate everybody for watching. Be sure to subscribe, drop a comment, like the video. Everything helps, and we'll see y'all later.
Peace out, everybody.